Hi everyone, today's lesson is going to be on factoring trinomials. Now, I know some of you have come from different classes, different teachers, so there are many ways to factor trinomials, so if the way that I'm doing it is not the way that you learned it, just bear with me for a minute. Please still continue to listen to my method, because if your answer is not the same, then you might want to learn a different method. Okay, I'm going to read off the steps. So first step, we're going to check for a greatest common factor. So here, in example number 1, I don't know if there's a common factor. I mean, between 6 and 8 I can divide out a 2, but I can't divide a 2 out of all 3 of these, so therefore there's no GCF. So step 1 is done. Step 2, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the first term and the last term. Please don't forget to include this sign here. So we're going to take the first term and last term, and we're going to multiply them. I like to call this sometimes the earmuff method. I've heard of it being called headphones, AC. So where earmuff got its name is, if you look at it, this first term that we are circling is one of the muffs. This is another muff, and that's the headband that connects them. Or if you learned this in intermediate algebra or advanced algebra, this would be the AC method. So we multiply these two, and when you multiply x squared and 8, you get 8x squared. Now, that was step 2. We multiplied the first and the last term and make a list of factors. So we want to find the factors of 8x squared. So let's start with 1. 1 and 8. How about 2 and 4? But what am I missing? Right now I have 1 times 8 is just 8, not 8x squared. Now we want to actually make it x times x so that we get x squared. Okay, that's important. Now how else could I multiply to a positive 8? You should be telling me two negatives. So a negative 1x and a negative 8x, or a negative 2x and a negative 4x. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find a pair of factors on this list that adds to the middle term. So we could put a little add right above the negative 6. We want to find, like I said, again, a pair on this list that adds to a negative 6. Well, 1x and 8x is 9x, 2x and 4x adds to 6x, negative 1x and negative 8x add to a negative 9x, negative 2x and a negative 4x, this one is our winner, negative 6x when you add them. So, what we are going to do now is we are going to bring down the first term and then bring down the last term. And we're going to fill the middle with this pair that adds to the middle term. So it doesn't matter the order. You could put negative 2x first or negative 4x. I'm going to just put it in the way that I see it. So negative 2x minus 4x. Okay? Now what we're going to do is, do you notice something from the other day? We have something that has 4 terms. How do I factor something that has 4 terms? You're going to use grouping. So what's the GCF between these two? You should be telling me x. And then divide. You should be left with x minus 2. Bring down the middle sign. The GCF between these next two terms would be negative 4, bigger than that. So negative 4x divided by negative 4 is an x. 8 divided by negative 4 is a negative 2. Again, now I have a GCF of x minus 2. And then I'm left with x minus 4. So this is this trinomial factored. Okay, if that was a little tricky for you, let's try another example and see how we do. So, okay, first things first, we're going to check for a greatest common factor. Is there a number or letter that I could divide all 3 of these by? The answer is no. So unfortunately there's no GCF. So what we're going to do is we're going to circle the first term and the last term, again making sure that we're grabbing this sign, and we're going to multiply them. And when we multiply them, we get negative 30x squared. Now, let's make a list of all the factors of negative 30x squared. How do I multiply to a negative number? You should be telling me a positive and a negative. So let's again start with 1. So 1x and negative 30x. Or couldn't I make it negative 1x and positive 30x? Okay, that takes care of all of the 1's. Now let's start with 2. So 2x and negative 15x, or negative 2x and 15x. 3x and negative 10x, or negative 3x and 10x. Okay, we're up to 4 now. Does 4 go into 30? No. How about 5? Yep. So we could do 5x and negative 6x, or negative 5x and positive 6x. And that's it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find a pair on this list that adds, again it has to add, to this positive 13 here. So if you're unsure about adding your positives and negatives, you could just go ahead and put all these into the calculator and see. But 1 plus negative 30 is negative 29. Negative 1 plus 30 is positive 29. Negative 2 minus 15x is a negative 13x. Negative 2x plus 15x is a positive 13. So this should be my winner. Okay, so now what we're going to do again is we're going to bring down the first term and bring down the last term, including the sign, and fill the middle with this pair. So we're going to type in a negative 2x plus 15x. And now since we have 4 terms, we're going to factor by grouping. So my GCF between the first 2 terms is x, and when I take out a GCF, I'm left with x minus 2. Bring down the plus sign in the middle. The GCF between 15 and 30 is 15. Divide it out, you should get x minus 2. My GCF between these two should be x minus 2 and x plus 15. And this is my final answer factored. Okay, example number 3. What do I need to do first? You should be saying GCF. So is there a number that I can divide 2, 12, and 32 by? Well, I think 2 works. So my GCF between the beginning trinomial is 2, and I'm left with x squared minus 6x minus 16. Okay, so after I've checked for GCF, I need to now factor this trinomial. So we're going to factor the trinomial the way that we factored example 1 and 2. We're actually going to ignore this 2 for now and put it back at the end. So what do we do first? We circle the first term and the last term, again including that sign, and we multiply them. And we get negative 16x squared. So let's make a list of factors. 1x and negative 16x, negative 1 and 16. How about 2? 2x and negative 8x, or negative 2x and 8x. 3, no. 4, 4x and negative 4x. I don't have to flip-flop this because it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, now which pair on this list adds to a negative 6? You should be saying this pair. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing as we did before. Again, ignore this 2 for now. So we bring down the first term, bring down the last term, and fill the middle with a positive 2x and a negative 8x. And now what's my GCF here? What's my GCF here? Bring down the minus. Well, for this one, you should be saying GCF is x plus 2. What's the GCF between 8 and 16? You should be saying 8. But remember, you're taking out a negative 8 because you brought down that sign. So negative 8x divided by negative 8 is a positive x. Negative 16 divided by negative 8 is a positive 2. So we're left with x plus 2 times x minus 8. Now that x plus 2x minus 8 is this factored. We have to take out that 2 in front still, so don't forget to bring that back down and put it on the outside. So that would be your final answer. Okay, let's try number 4. So what is your first step? You should be saying check for GCF. So as I look through, I see that they're all divisible by 3. Are they divisible by anything else? There's an m here, an m here, and an m here. Okay, so 3m. How about the x's? X squared, x, no x. Okay, so it's got to be just 3m. Okay, so I'm just going to write out the 3m. So 3m followed by an open parenthesis, x squared minus 3x minus 10. So again, we took out a GCF. Now I want to factor this trinomial. So I need to find two numbers that multiply to the product of the first and the last, so negative 10x squared, that are going to add to a negative 3x. So let's make that factor list. We could do 1x and negative 10x, negative 1x and 10x, 2x and negative 5x, or negative 2x and 5x. So let's find the pair that adds to negative 3. That's my pair. Again, we're going to leave this 3x until, this 3m until later on when we need it. So we're going to bring down the first term, bring down the last term, fill the middle with a positive 2x and a negative 5x. And now we're going to find the GCF between these two. So x plus 2, bring down the negative sign. The GCF between these two would be a 5, but you're actually taking out a negative 5 because of the sign. So negative 5x divided by negative 5 is x. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is a positive 2. And the last step would to be combine the x plus 2 and the x minus 5. There's a 3m in front, so we're just going to bring this down here. That would be your final answer. Now, somebody remind me in class tomorrow. Ask me about trick. And we're going to talk about something that applies to just these 4 examples. Okay, I think you're ready to try some on your own now. Why don't you try example number 5 and 6 on your own, and then hit resume to see the work and the answer. Feel free to fast forward me straight to the answer if you'd like. Okay, so for number 5, there's no GCF, so you go straight to multiplying the first term and the last term, and you get 12x squared. Your list of factors should look like this: 1x and 12x, 2x and 6x, 3x and 4x. But you can also have two negatives, so negative 1x and negative 12x, negative 2x and negative 6x, negative 3x and negative 4x. We want to find the pair on this list that adds to the middle term. So which pair adds to a positive 7? You should have picked 3x and 4x. So now you're going to bring down the first term, bring down the last term, and fill the middle with a positive 3x and a positive 4x. Group these two and those two, and bring down the plus sign. Your GCF for the left-hand side should have been an x, and you're left with 2x plus 3. Your GCF on the right-hand side should have been a 2, and you're left with 2x plus 3. And the last step is take out that GCF of 2x plus 3, and you're left with x plus 2. These should be your factors. Okay, in example number 6, you should have saw a GCF first. The GCF is 2, so you're going to divide each piece by 2 first, and you'll be left with 2x squared minus 9x plus 10. And we now want to multiply the first term and the last term. And you should get positive 20x squared. And we want to find the factors. So 1x and 20x, 2x and 10x, 4x and 5x. But we're multiplying to a positive 20, so you could have also written negative 1x and negative 20x, negative 2x and negative 10x, and negative 4x and negative 5x. So again, ignore the GCF that's on the outside until later. Bring down the first term, bring down the last, and fill the middle with the pair that adds to a negative 9, x. So the pair that would add to a negative should have been this one. So now you put in the negative 4x and the negative 5x, group these two, and bring down the minus. The GCF on the left-hand side should be 2x, and you should be left with x minus 2. The GCF on the right-hand side is 5, but remember, since you brought down this negative sign, your GCF is really a negative 5. So negative 5x divided by negative 5 is x. 10 divided by negative 5 is a negative 2. Last but not least, take out the GCF of x minus 2, and you're left with 2x minus 5. That would be your final answer. Just don't forget about this 2 and bring it down, and that would be your final answer. Okay, we're up to the last 2 now. So first things first, again, we're going to want to check for a GCF. Now, I don't see a GCF, but what I notice, something different, is that this has a high power. This is a power of 4. And look at example 8. Example number 8 is example number 8 has a power of 8. So I don't want you to worry or think that there's a different method. The method is still going to be the same. All trinomials can be factored by this earmuff or AC method. So in example 7, since there was no GCF, we're going to go straight to multiplying the first term and the last term. Also remembering to keep that negative. So this would be negative 24, a to the 4th. So we want to find the factors of negative 24 just as we did before, but now they have to multiply to a to the 4th. So we need an a squared and an a squared. That's it. That's the only difference. So we would do 1a squared and negative 24a squared. Or 2a squared and negative 12a squared. Next would be 3a squared and negative 8a squared. 4a squared and negative 6a squared. And then we could flip-flop this list. So I know it's a lot of work, but we could rewrite it as negative 1a squared, 24a squared, negative 2a squared, 12a squared, negative 3a squared, 8a squared, and negative 4a squared and 6a squared. Now you might be thinking, is it necessary that I write this entire list? The answer is no. If you're good with multiplication and adding with positive and negative numbers, there's really no need for the list at all. So let's find on this list which pair adds to a positive 2. So I see that it's right here. So we're going to do just like we did before, bring down the first term, bring down the last term, and fill the middle with the pair that we found. And now we're going to do factor by grouping. The GCF on the first 2 terms is an a squared. You're left with a squared minus 4. The GCF on the second 2 terms is 6, and you're left with a squared minus 4. The GCF is a squared minus 4, so we'll pull that out, and I'll be left with a squared plus 6. Now what's great about this one is, like, look at this. Can't you factor more? This is dots, a plus 2, a minus 2. And then just bring down the a squared plus 6. That was fun, wasn't it? All right. Why don't you try to do number 8 by yourselves, and then resume to see the work and the answer. Okay, so there is no GCF, so the first thing that I want to do is circle the first term and the last term, including the sign. So negative 28 b to the 8th. So I should, in order to multiply to b to the 8th, we need a b to the 4th and b to the 4th. So 1 and negative 28, 2b to the 4th and negative 14b to the 4th, 4b to the 4th and negative 7b to the 4th, and we can flip it. So negative 1b to the 4th and 24b to the 4th. Negative 2b to the 4th and 14b to the 4th. Negative 4b to the 4th and 7b to the 4th. And now we need to find the pair that's going to add to that middle term of a negative 3. So 7, negative 7b to the fourth, and positive 4b to the fourth. So again, bring down the first term, bring down the last term, and fill the middle with the positive 4b to the fourth and negative 7b to the fourth. Factor by grouping. Group these two, group those two, bring down the minus sign. So the GCF of these first two terms is b to the fourth, and I'm left with b to the fourth plus 4. Take out a GCF on the last two terms, which is 7. But be careful, again, you're taking out a negative 7. So you should get b to the fourth plus 4. Again, this is a plus 4 because you have a negative divided by a negative, which gives you a positive. And then you're left with b to the fourth plus 4 and b to the fourth minus 7. Don't even think about it. Is that a difference of two perfect squares? No. This is your final answer. If you got that, great. All right, see you in class tomorrow.